Hi guys, Ed Barton, the Social Anxiety Coach again here. And in this video, I wanted to give you some tips for public speaking when you struggle badly with anxiety. I know just how difficult public speaking can be when you suffer with anxiety. I had very bad social anxiety and this really flared up and became very prevalent when I was at university. This was the first time that I was required to give presentations in front of large groups, and these normally went one of two ways. First of all, I would just absolutely avoid the presentation, not go into class and forfeit the credits for that module because I was actually too scared and too anxious to even get up in front of a class and give a presentation. Or I would rush off to the university bar at 11 o'clock when it opened, quickly down a couple of alcoholic drinks, usually a couple of pints of beer, and then go off to my class and deliver my presentation half drunk. Later on, as a foreign policy analyst for the British government in the embassy in Beijing, I would also rely on drugs like beta blockers such as propranolol, which I would take before speaking. And I do not recommend any of these routes, whether it be total avoidance, whether it be relying on prescription drugs or other drugs like alcohol. What we want to aim for is nice, confident delivery of our presentation or our speech while we are completely sober and not under the influence of any drugs or medications. So as I say, I was struggling with terrible social anxiety and was medicating in a number of different ways, and I went from there to then delivering speeches in front of diplomats and ambassadors when I was working in the embassy. And I also joined Toastmasters, and you can see a link to a video that I made, which is my first speech at Toastmasters, where I actually talk openly about my struggles with social anxiety. So in order to overcome your fear of public speaking as an anxious person, I'm going to use the PDA framework, which I've talked about in other videos, and this is a pre, during, and after framework, which I have found very useful for myself and for clients in dealing with a number of difficult situations that you may encounter, whether it's public speaking, interviews, or anything else. So before the presentation or the public speaking event, the first thing you need to do is to prepare very thoroughly. This will give you more peace of mind. When you know your material well, it naturally gives you more confidence. One thing I would warn against, though, is over-preparing. There have been times where I have almost memorized word for word a speech and delivered it in that way, and it comes across as very wooden and scripted and robotic. And you will see this in TED Talks. You can see the speakers who are improvising off bullet points or speaking notes that they have memorized, as opposed to those which are almost regurgitating a whole speech verbatim. And it tends to stop authentic connection with the audience because the speaker is working so hard to recall almost every word. And this is a kind of over-focus on perfectionism, and it just comes across as wooden and stilted. So I would recommend preparing well, but really trying to work off just a skeleton framework or some bullet points. Don't try to memorize everything word for word. You're going to put yourself under too much pressure, and it's going to come across as stiff. The second point is massively important for all sufferers of anxiety and social anxiety. And this is something which we need to look at in all areas of our life, not just public speaking, and that is avoiding catastrophization. If you sit around in the run-up to your speaking event and you catastrophize about all the things that could go wrong, your mind can run absolutely wild. You can imagine getting up there, having total mind blank, not knowing what to say at all. You can imagine having a total fit, having a seizure on stage, sweating, going completely red. There's no limit to the images your mind can conjure up. So it's very important not to get drawn into catastrophization. The third point is a counterpoint to this, which is instead of visualizing all these terrible scenarios which could happen, visualize success. And I often used to think of this in terms of a tightrope which I was walking down. Before an event, I could choose to look down and think, oh wow, I'm 100 feet up in the air, I could fall, I could die, all kinds of terrible things could happen to me. Or I could just focus on the point I wanted to get to. And I feel it's very much like that when we're leading up to a public speaking event. You can focus on all the bad stuff, or you can focus on success and what you want the thing to turn out like. So visualize success. This is a technique used by all high achievers, all top sportsmen. There's nothing woo-woo about it. And it's important to be very granular and very clear in your detail. I used to imagine how I would walk up to the lectern or how I would walk up to the stage, how I would shake the hand of the person introducing me, and how I would then sort of take the power over to myself, how I would confidently look at the audience. I would even visualize the pause I was going to take and the deep, sonorous opening to my speech that I would make. So you can imagine things in very granular, fine, crystal clear detail, because this will give your subconscious more to work with, and then your body can actually materialize what has already been implanted in the subconscious. The fourth point I would highly recommend is, if there's enough time between now and your public speaking event, join Toastmasters. Toastmasters is a public speaking group, and ostensibly it's for people to improve their public speaking skills. But what I found from talking to the people there, many people go there because they are anxiety sufferers, or they've had social anxiety, or they finally want to overcome this fear of public speaking, which has been holding them back for so long. So I stopped thinking of it as a public speaking group or a corporate group or a business group, and really started to think of it as my own personal public speaking anxiety support group, because so many of the people that I spoke to were in the same boat as me and were going there to face down this lifelong fear of public speaking, which had held them back for so long. So I highly recommend joining Toastmasters. It gives you very good graduated desensitization and exposure to public speaking, and even to just being looked at. That's one of our biggest problems, is the self-consciousness, and we really don't want to be looked at. So if you don't have time before the event, on your public speaking journey and on this journey to overcoming your anxiety, I would recommend it very, very highly. Even if you can't do it before the event, do it after the event. Make it a part of your life. You won't regret it. It was a real game changer for me. The fifth and final part of this pre-public speaking preparation that you can do is to practice in front of friends and family. Just to warm up in front of small groups, get more desensitized to that feeling of being observed and performing in front of others. If you don't have a group of people that you can do this with, you can also just film yourself and practice seeing yourself on camera. Okay, so now we're on to the D part of this framework. This is during the public speaking event. I'm a big believer that getting off to a good start can really help us in anxiety-inducing situations. So my first recommendation here is to walk up confidently to the stage or to the speaking lectern. If you shamble up there with submissive, weak body language, which conveys the message that you really don't want to do this, that you're like someone being sent off to the hangman's gallows, ready to face death, this will send out a non-verbal message already to the audience. So even if you're faking it till you make it, try to stride up there confidently, hopefully, as you already will have visualized before the event. Walk up to the stage and make a very confident start. Give a firm handshake to the person introducing you, and then turn to the audience and feel that you're actually taking over that space from the person who's introduced you. My second point to ensure success during the event is to take a pause before you start, before you do anything. What you often see with inexperienced speakers, anxious people, and this was something I definitely did myself early on, is they will often hurry up to the lectern, put their notes down if they have them, keep their head down, and just rush through the whole thing, because in their mind, they're thinking, if I can just get this done and get out of here without having a panic attack, that's success. They've set their bar very low, and it just becomes an exercise in damage limitation, rather than delivering the speech as charismatically, as confidently, and persuasively as they could. So once you arrive on the stage or at the lectern, take a moment to just look around, breathe deeply, and just marinate for a second in that atmosphere of having the audience in front of you, them looking at you, feeling observed. And this can be an almost energetic kind of exercise where you stand there and you look out, and it's as if you're presenting your power and your energy outwards and making a statement to yourself and the audience that, yes, I am here, I am controlling the situation now, and I'm going to present to you. As opposed to going up there with very submissive body language, standing behind the lectern and rushing through before you've had a chance to breathe or even look at the people you're speaking to. It's as if the energy and the power and the pressure of their gaze is crushing down on you, and it will cause your body language to crumple in, and it will cause you to speak faster and faster, for your breathing to get out of cadence, and for the whole thing to just feel very rushed and uncomfortable. The third point is somewhat related to the previous two in terms of making a confident start and taking a pause, is to deliver the first sentence or even the first word of your speech in a confident way. Do not suck in air and deliver your first sentence, your first syllable, with all this energy and tension trapped up in the top of your chest. Try to take a deep breath and then deliver the first sentence of your speech with resonance and confidence. And this creates a biofeedback loop, a positive feedback loop, where as you deliver that in a confident way and your body feels comfortable, you hear how that sounds to other people and it makes you feel more confident. If you open your mouth without fully preparing and the first sentence of your speech comes out quavering and wavery and broken, that immediately gets things off to a bad start and creates this feedback loop where you may then start to get embarrassed, start to sweat, and things just start to escalate in a negative way. So it's all about delivering your first sentence from the diaphragm with abdominal breathing in a powerful, confident way. And that sets the tone. It tells yourself and the audience, I'm confident, I'm here to speak, I know what I'm doing, and this is going to go well. My fourth point is something which I learned the hard way and which you can see in my video from Toastmasters, where I was pacing back and forth and fidgeting and over gesticulating. And this is my fourth piece of advice, is to try and use conscious awareness to avoid pacing, using your hands too much, or fidgeting. Try to plant your feet as much as possible. Only use your hands where it may be appropriate. Otherwise, hold them clasped in front of you or in a neutral, positive position, and try to avoid this habit of nervously pacing back and forth. Okay, so having delivered your awesome, confident speech, we now move on to the A part of the PDA framework, which is afterwards. And the first point is very important. If you have anxiety or social anxiety, you're going to be very prone to rumination and giving a post-mortem on whatever's happened, and also employing cognitive distortion such as discounting the positive, where even if 59 minutes and 58 seconds of the speech were absolutely perfect, if the last 2 seconds went how you weren't exactly planning them, you're going to focus on them and discount all the previous 1 hour of the speech and how well it had gone. So avoid overly criticizing yourself, avoid this post-mortem, and avoid rumination on any perceived mistakes, and be very aware of where you're overly focusing on the negative, discounting the positive, and try to shift your attention to what went well. Maybe even just getting up there and delivering the speech for the first time is something to celebrate. That's a huge milestone. This is your first step and you can build from there. So celebrate that, celebrate your wins, and do not just rip yourself apart after the event. My second piece of advice is to ask for feedback. And if you're part of a Toastmasters group, this is baked into the whole structure of the group. You have a mentor, they will positively and constructively critique your speech. So look for feedback. Don't be emotionally attached. Stay rational, scientific, and objective, and ask for feedback to look for where you can improve. There is a saying that you either win or you learn, which suggests that if we deliver the speech well, we're going to celebrate, and if we don't do so well, we're then going to analyze that and learn from it. But I prefer the perspective of whether you win or you lose, you should learn from both. If the speech went very well, analyze it. Look for what went well and why it went well. What did you do which made it so successful? If it didn't go so well, equally and objectively, analyze that. Why didn't it go so well? Why didn't it go as planned? So regardless of the outcome, analyze both and see what went well or what didn't go so well. My third and final point is to practice, practice, practice. Regardless of how the speech went, this might just be your first stepping stone. It's the beginning of your journey. You can keep improving. So keep practicing public speaking. It's one of the most important skills in life. It's incredibly transferable. And I feel that public speaking even includes things like just talking in a conversation where other people might be listening in, or having people look at you while you speak. Even if it's not on a stage, it could just be in a small group or around a lunch table. For me, this all comes under the umbrella of public speaking, so it's an incredibly important skill to master. So keep practicing. If you can, join a specific group like Toastmasters, which is going to facilitate your practice and your growth, and just keep moving on from there and keep improving. If this advice resonated with you and you're currently facing public speaking anxiety, then by all means click the link in the description below this video and we can jump on a call to discuss how we can work together to overcome your fear of public speaking.